So I want to take you on a journey through the mind of a villain. We will learn what makes them tick, how they act. We will cover everything from a villain within oneself, to obstacles of nature, to the broken, through the guided, to the pure evil, and to the units of destruction. So grab your pitchforks, put on your capes, and your thinking helmet as well, as we dwell into the minds of villains. I am the Warden, and welcome to Villain Psyche.
Hello Mindswellers, welcome back to the Skydome control pad. Things look a little bit different around here, but that's because as more of you discover me, the more I can bring my reality to you. Anyway, dinosaurs are some of my favorite creatures to ever exist. There's so much about them that we know and so much we don't know that leads to so many interesting possibilities. Which is why when I see stories about them, it's always a fun time. Now, for a movie titled Dinosaur, this movie has a ton of nostalgia for me and is the reason I love them so much. Plus, it gave me some interesting antagonists that cover pretty much all the things I've said in my intro. Yes, all of them. So without further ado, let's jump back 65 million years ago into a story of every antagonist. Let's talk about the first antagonist the heroes face. A massive asteroid crashing into the Earth. I could easily stop here by saying, oh yeah, big rock hits the Earth and destroys everything. There's a unit of destruction and obstacle of nature for you. No. One thing I think people don't talk about is how absolutely devastating the asteroid was. Yes, it wiped out the dinosaurs, but do you want to know how? Do you want to know how terrifying an asteroid hitting the Earth really is? Of course you do. You're watching me talk about villains. This is Earth's villain. So an asteroid smashes into the Earth. Those shock waves are bursts of thermo-radiation sent screaming across the planet that incinerate everything. Luckily, the one in the movie is much smaller, but that's what those shock waves were. Minutes after the impact, massive earthquakes hitting at least 11 magnitudes, which created massive tsunamis. Then the debris falls back to the Earth like we see in the movie, and because of that cloud we see covers everything and begins to cook the Earth. And it leaves behind a scorched planet, just like we see in the movie. Sometimes even nature can be so unpredictable it can wipe everything out in just seconds. Luckily for our heroes, they were far enough away and dodged the cloud of death. But we do see fires around them, meaning it's still extremely hot and combustible. They look back at their home, which is now a rock of destruction and death. As our heroes now trudge through the desert in search of anything, they see something new. A creature darts off in the distance. Upon closer inspection, the creature is a raptor. Surrounded, the raptors take an opportunity to strike. They have claws and sharp teeth. This is what Yar was worried about all those years ago. The raptors serve as a small bump in the road for our protagonists. They aren't really villains, just animals hunting. We can explain the situation later, but basically, food is scarce due to the asteroid and they are now just scavengers. They pick off stray or lonely travelers. As a carnivore, they aren't starving. They seemed confused too and observant at first, but they took the opportunity to hunt. Once Aladar meets the herd, they become an incentive to stay with the group and remain strong as to not get eaten by them. On this topic of animal villains, I would say the raptors serve as a border of perseverance and failure. As the group continues the journey, we see animals give up or die to be eaten by them. They aren't hunting the herd, but are a reminder to not give up. Even Crone doesn't wish this on his herd, but to push as hard as they can. But we'll get to him later. So Aladar is under the protection of Crone's herd. He meets the elderly and Earl, and the leaders of the herd, Crone and Bruton. Bruton is Crone's right-hand man and second in command. He is the one who guides the herd under Crone's guidance. Sure, Bruton may seem tough and mean on the outside, but he actually cares about the herd's members. We see this earlier when he forces a Parasaurolophus up. Sure, it looks mean and tough, but it's actually needed. Remember what I said about the raptors and giving up? Well, if Bruton didn't care or left him to sleep, or just stay in whatever condition it's in, he would have just stayed there to be the next meal for the raptors. He doesn't want them to give up. He wants to push them to be safe and live their life. Yes, he may be rude towards Aladar, but a newcomer talking up to the leader isn't something most businesses do. He's a bodyguard and will always step in. Crone tells him to chill, and he does. He follows his guidance from those around him. Speaking of that, he offers himself as a scout, someone who had to push themselves further if it might lead to danger. Which is what happens. Crone sends him on a scouting mission and he brings another to aid him. Safety in numbers. However, while away he senses something is wrong, even protecting the other by telling him to be quiet and suggesting they leave. Sadly, it was an ambush. When he returns to Crone badly wounded, he gives the warning call and still gets the herd to move. And there's a shot here I really like. When Crone yells at him to feed the Carnotaurs with his own hide, he seems defeated in that he has failed his leader. He is now broken. Unable to push himself due to his injuries, he stops and decides that he is nothing anymore. When our heroes find him, they offer to help, but still acting tough, he tells them to leave and that he's going to die anyway. A bit later, he tries to push himself just a bit more, but he can't do it. He lays in the rain, truly giving up, but Aladar brings him inside. Bruton doesn't say anything. He has accepted help or security from the dinos who he was once so rude towards. He doesn't need to say anything. Aladar and the rest can see it. Because when Bruton lays down in a corner, Ima dislikes it, but Aladar says he's now one of them. Someone who may be at the edge of hope, but that hope has gotten them so far. Cleo then aids Bruton's wounds, and he tells her that his fate is now to die here. She responds by saying, "Only if you give up. It's still your choice." As she leaves, Bruton thinks for a minute, changed by what she said. She has inspired him, and he takes the thing that healed him. But peace can only last so long. A pair of Carnotaurs have entered the ring. They attack our heroes and bring Aladar down as he tries to help his friends. Bruton, ahead of everyone else, looks back. He could so easily run to safety. He could easily let them kill Aladar and the others to save himself. But instead, he charges back and saves Aladar. He tells them to run and save the others while he holds them off. Bruton knocks one into a pillar that's supporting the cave. He realizes what he must do to protect his herd. He smashes himself and the Carnotaurs, destroying the pillar and the cave. As a massive cave-in strikes, Aladar tries to go back to him, and Bruton is almost there, but not everyone can make it through life. But they can make a difference in others. That's what I love about Bruton. He saved the lives of dinos who didn't really care about his. He made all the difference for them to still hang on to hope and push on and make it to the nesting grounds. Rest in peace, Bruton. Thank you. Now, I bet all of you are wondering, where are the main antagonists of this story? I skimmed over them twice. Well, I'm here to say the Carnotaurs is just an animal, just like the raptor. Now, yes, it has a much bigger presence and is much smarter than the raptors, able to be agile enough to climb a steep cliff, alright? But one thing about this Carnotaur is that it holds a grudge. But a realistic one. Sure, it may be just a predator hunting and knows when it's outmatched. However, it has a grudge against Aladar because Aladar was there when Bruton killed its sibling or lover, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to say family just because of how they act. But look at how it tries to knock Aladar off the edge. That's not, I'm going to kill you and eat you later. That's, I'm going to kill you. He does kill Crone, but that was for the hunt and food. Crone was all alone, and it was an easy pick. Nira and Aladar step in and stop it, so it's the final straw for the Carnotaur, a smart predator with a grudge. One thing that movies like this fail to do is say that it's not personal when you're hunted by a carnivore, but in this film it showcases that. Both the Carnotaur and the raptors eat the fallen. They need to eat and drink too. It's just different and makes them seem antagonistic to the herbivores. And to this Carnotaur, Aladar and Bruton are the villains. They killed its family and did it with purpose when he just wanted to eat. It wasn't personal, it's just the circle of life. They also missed their chance on Bruton and was probably tracking him down to finish him off or put him out of his misery and get a meal out of it. Because back when Bruton was scouting, one of the Carnotaurs successfully got the Iguanodon and the other one didn't. Knowing they're a big predator, sharing and quantity wasn't enough, so they were hunting and finishing what they started. So I wouldn't call them villains, but just animals. And for this carnivore, a victim. Predators and animals are always weird to categorize in a villain category. Some of them, like the Sharp Teeth in the Land Before Time series, absolutely. But ones like these and the Tarbosaurus in Walking with Dinosaurs, I don't think I would. So I think there's a little gray area just called nature, as animals need to eat too. This leads us to our final villain, or should I say anti-villain, Crone. First, what is an anti-villain? They are someone who has a noble or heroic goal, but are very selfish and go through anything to get it. It's not necessarily bad, but it is harsh. A great example is Thanos. He believes he is saving the universe by dusting half of life, and saving resources for the others. From his experience, it did work, and it kinda saved Earth because a celestial was about to pop due to the energy the Earth was feeding it. Anyway, what does this have to do with Crone? Crone, I think, is an even better example than Thanos, as it's clear Thanos is the bad guy of the story, but Crone isn't. When you ask people or look up the antagonist of the film, the Carnotaur is the one that shows up, not Crone, even though Crone is much more antagonistic to Aladar and his family. But like I said with Bruton, it's a tough love. Crone is on a mission. It's his job to lead the herd to the nesting grounds and get there with the least amount of casualties as possible. As Hopper once said, first rule of leadership, everything is your fault. Crone takes this will to his grave, as he is very protective of his leadership and herd. The only problem is Aladar consistently threatening it and the elements taking a toll on the herd. He is equally stunned in situations that stun the rest, like the water hole being dried up and the cliff to the nesting grounds. But he makes quick decisions to keep the herd moving, whilst making other solutions to work around the problem. One big thing is he's actually content with Nira being with Aladar. He doesn't scoff at the idea, he accepts it in a good way. It's only when Aladar challenges him does he become aggressive and attack Aladar for rivalry and ownership of the herd. He isn't malicious or mean, just overprotective of it and his sister. He believes he is doing the right thing and trusts in himself. His prejudice against Aladar is what led him to his downfall in the end. But in the end, he did see his sister and Aladar fight for him. Crone, I think, is the main antagonist here, but he's very anti-villain in his role. A tough and mean exterior, but very caring and supportive at heart. The big issue with Crone that makes him antagonistic is his lack of care toward the end, but also not really. Just like Hopper said, if everything is your fault and you lose so much, then you just push without much care and try to meet the goal as close as possible. I see this phenomena everywhere. The phenomena is rightly called the caregiver burnout. This causes someone to be irrational and aggressive under the right circumstances, and that's exactly the situation Crone is in. My other favorite shot here is when you visibly see him snap. You see it all in his eyes, and since it's the window to the soul, it's perfect. He turns super aggressive because he is, in the instance, he's about to lose everything. He gives Aladar chances. He warns him nicely the first time, at least in his way of being nice, then brings him down the second time, but just because he's scared and angry for Aladar intervening. When people are angry, it causes you to act more irrationally. He's under a lot of pressure, and when it's finally all about to be torn away from him, boom, no more chances, and he attacks. Of course, when his own sister steps in, he is stunned. He is rightfully stunned and sad as he watches it all flow away from him. It's when something becomes so stressful and loss is now inevitable, it takes such a toll on you, you just stop caring and go for the goal. It can affect you physically and psychologically. It can happen when you try to do more than you're able to, emotionally and physically, which is what we see exactly happen with Crone. The herd and him have gone through so much trial and tribulation, it took a toll on him to where he has half the herd left by the end. He's lost so much, and he just wants to make it to the nesting grounds as quickly as possible. Because stopping now could lead to something even worse when you have nothing. And I think why that is because it's just a survival instinct to make it to what you know is safe and will grant you your party's security. And the reaction from this is that carelessness trait that Crone showcases. That's why when Crone says, we'll save the half that deserves to live, you can see and hear it that he is stressed out and scared, but he is still very determined to push on with the hope that they can still make it alive. That's this whole film's premise. It's about hope, and the antagonists further cement that by being broken hope, determined hope, driven hope, fallen hope, and the end of hope. That is why I love this movie and how it treats antagonists. Not only because does it affect our heroes and their message, but other antagonists too. Everything interacts and bounces off each other. It creates a mesh so perfectly weaved together you didn't even notice. The asteroid sends everything into action by scorching the land and its resources, causing the herds, raptors, carnivores, and our heroes to move. The herd is food and continues moving to avoid the raptors and carnivores. And the carnivores tear down and pick off the herd, Bruton and Crone, whilst hunting Aladar for revenge of Bruton killing its family. Bruton, who further cemented that everyone deserves a chance in life. And the Carnotaur kills Crone, a dino who drove the herd to the edge of its breaking point. All of this strengthens Aladar and his friends' belief to continue with a sense of hope, good or bad, because with no matter how bad things got, the refusal to give up saved everyone. At least mostly, and that is all the villain archetypes in one movie. Now Novu, may you please grab us a souvenir?
What about pure evil?
Oh yeah, Zenny's Riz.
Girls, I'm known as the Professor of Love. And school's in session. Oh, it's good.
Until next time, Line Explorers.